Mueller's investigation has been a lengthy and uneventful one, finally concluding no Russian collusion between Trump and Russia. Some on the left will drag this thing through the mud till the bitter end, and it may have been set up that way, so that when people discover the real collusion, it can be dismissed as conspiracy theory. Because Democrats wasted everybody's trust and patience on a false narrative. If you stick with me for a few minutes, I'm going to lay out my case for why the Russian collusion narrative should really be the Israeli collusion narrative, or perhaps even Israeli and Saudi collusion. Consider for a second some of the foreign policy moves the US/Trump has made against Russia and its allies. Trump bombed Russia's ally Syria. US sanctions were placed against Russia with mixed feedback from Trump. Trump moves to subvert Russia and convince Germany and other European countries to switch from Russian natural gas to US natural gas, a move that would enormously impact Russia. Trump appears to be supporting a coup against Venezuela, also a longtime ally of Russia. Trump supported Israel's occupation of Golan Heights, a direct move against Russia's ally, Assad. To me, it does not seem as though Russia is benefiting very much from its relationship with the US at the moment. And while I do think Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu have collusion on some channels, Trump and Netanyahu also collude. I just do not see any direct connection between Trump and Russia. It's not even that colluding with other countries is wrong, especially when collusion can benefit both countries. Obviously, collusion over election influence or hacking is much more serious. But there's not much evidence in regards to that from Russia. However, Israel's influence in our elections is so out in the open that people don't even notice it as something strange. Apparently, you need the media to blast narratives down people's throats every second of the day just to get them to pay attention. Bear with me a few moments and check out some of these clips that undoubtedly show how Israel's influencing US elections and their politicians.
There is tremendous pressure inside the political process to make sure that the voters stay aligned inside either the Democrat or Republican parties. Why? Because both of those parties have been captured by special interests. And those special interests are, quite frankly, the antithesis of the interests of the people. And so therefore, for example, if people in the United States care about education, but unfortunately there's a banker that gets in between the student and the student's ability to go to school, if they care about health care, there's the insurance industry that gets in between the patient and the doctor who is seeking to provide care. And so we have all of these special interests that have positioned themselves in between the political decision makers and the people themselves. What I bumped into at almost every turn were these special interests. And there's no more special interest that has any more influence than the pro-Israel lobby. Politically assaulted to such an extent that my father had to ask the question publicly, what does Stone Mountain, Georgia have to do with Israel? What I was doing was servicing the needs of my constituents. And I was not allowed to do that because I did not toe the line on U.S. policy for Israel.
What line is that they wanted? Were you told directly that you had to toe a line, or explain that to me?
Well, every candidate for Congress at that time had a pledge. They were given a pledge to sign. And I was new on the scene, And so the pledge had Jerusalem as the capital city, the military superiority of Israel.
American Congress people have to sign this pledge.
Yes, you sign the pledge. If you don't sign the pledge, you don't get money.
In a 100-page complaint charging that AIPAC has worked so closely, and I'm just reading, with legally established PACs to target political candidates on the basis of their positions toward Israel, that the PACs, political action committees, are in effect affiliates of the lobby group. That would be illegal. That would be in violation of the federal election laws. It would be in violation of what AIPAC contends are the limits of its own activities. And I continue this same clipping. AIPAC's formidable ability to mobilize congressional support is based not upon an appeal to American national interests, now get this, but upon threats by a special interest that has resorted to conspiracy and conclusion. The report demands that the FEC force AIPAC to register as a political action committee and disclose its activities. Such a ruling would hamper the effectiveness of the lobby, which operates behind the scenes to recruit support for Israel.
This seems rather curious, to say the least, leading one to wonder how these pro-Israel PACs choose their beneficiaries. And that's where AIPAC comes in. A memo leaked to 60 Minutes and the Washington Post in 1998 reveals that AIPAC exercises a high degree of oversight and coordination over the smaller, money-giving PACs. The memo, written by AIPAC's Assistant Director of Political Affairs, Elizabeth Schreier, instructs a subordinate to pressure several PACs to donate to specific candidates. The first item, it's a little hard to read, I'll read it to you, says, ICE PAC, another descriptive pro-Israel PAC name, has done nothing in the Colorado, Louisiana, and Missouri race. They have given $500 to Evans and Daschle. On 6/30/86, they had $11,048. Try for $1,000 to bond Moore, Evans, Daschle, and Reed. So this memo makes clear that the recipients of pro-Israel PAC contributions are not necessarily selected by the individual PACs making those contributions. Despite this smoking gun memo, however, the Federal Election Commission classifies AIPAC as a membership organization rather than a political committee. And what this means is that AIPAC does not have to reveal its sources of income or its expenditures.
You threaten the freedoms of every American, and I can't understand this, why no one in Congress is raising their voice. And the reason is very simple. And this may be you don't want to hear, I don't know. And I certainly don't want to hurt you on your show. You have one of the best. You're fair. But I believe that Israel has a powerful stranglehold on the American government. They control both members of the House and the Senate. They have us involved in wars of which we have little or no interest. Our children are coming back in body bags. Our nation is bankrupt over these wars. And if you open your mouth, you get targeted. And if they don't beat you at the poll, they'll put you in prison.
The Israeli puppeteer travels to Washington. The Israeli puppeteer meets with the puppet in the White House and then moves down Pennsylvania Avenue and meets with the puppets in Congress and then takes back billions of taxpayer dollars.
To get elected in the American political system, you need lots of money. What AIPAC does is it makes sure that money is funneled your way if you're seen as pro-Israel, and it'll go to significant lengths to make sure that you stay in office if you continue to be staunchly pro-Israel.
May God bless Israel. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you so much. Thank you.
They have questionnaires. Anybody running for Congress is expected to fill out a questionnaire. And they evaluate the depth of your commitment to Israel on the basis of that question. And then you have an interview with local people. If you get AIPAC support, then more often than not, you're going to win.
AIPAC does is it definitely silences reporting that's balanced on this kind of thing. It definitely funds, this has been well established, gives early seed money to candidates so that by the time people are elected, they really can't deviate from a support for Israel, whatever Israel is up to, party line, or else they won't have the money to get reelected. And there's an unholy alliance. Basically, AIPAC, look, I couldn't draw you a Venn diagram, but basically, AIPAC and a number of other entities really profit, you know, Raytheon, I mean, you know, any number of entities that primarily are funded by war, contractors in Washington, D.C. with big houses, you know, like I hear from my sources in the intelligence world that we have to keep going with ISIS and with, you know, drumming up war ink forever, and the sound bites you're getting now in Britain that this will be years and years and years of conflict. You could know at the beginning of World War II that it would be years and years and years of conflict. History doesn't work that way. But if you're War Inc., you have to prime populations, especially democracies, for years and years and years of conflict, because that's where the vast profits are generated. So basically, there's a huge movement of young Muslims who are sophisticated, young Jews who are sophisticated, people all over the world who are just sick of this and ready to just kind of create a civil society.
I'm not Native American. I'm asking why you think you have a right to tell me what.
Yeah, that right there will be going on in the United States pretty soon. Americans are the next Palestinians. I'll tell you that.
They went through genocide, just like the Palestinians.
You don't know what kind of people.
It doesn't end there. Let's take a look at some other illegal collusion between Trump and other foreign countries. Remember when Trump backed Saudi Arabia in Yemen, which is a humanitarian disaster? Remember when the Saudis blew up a bus of Yemenis children? Trump made a big deal over the fake story of Assad gassing his own people, but totally silent on a bus full of children killed with US weapons in Yemen by Saudi Arabia. Remember when Trump supported Mohammed bin Salman after he had a journalist hacked up with a bone saw? This is all illegal activity by Saudi Arabia, supported by Donald Trump. But still, the Russian narrative is what everyone is talking about. Trump even sold Ukraine weapons. They are not on good terms with Russia. It was likely viewed as aggression. But in many Americans' minds, it's all about Russia, Russia, Russia. There was certainly support and collusion with the Saudis over illegal activity, and we already learned how Israel influences elections. But what illegal activities of Israel has the Trump administration supported? Well, for starters, Israel took over the Golan Heights on its northern border with Syria, following the 1967 war, and annexed them in 1981, which the Security Council declared an illegal act. As you can see, Trump fully supports this illegal activity. Also, so many times over the years has the international community made resolutions against Israel, but so conveniently the US tends to veto these resolutions, which is really revealing of a much bigger problem at hand, a form of control that seems to pervade over either side of the political spectrum, and shows itself to some degree, no matter who is in charge. Trump illegally bombed Syrian government targets, a government that is combating ISIS. It really begins to make you wonder whose side he's on. This all took place during the same time period that Israel launched many illegal strikes on Syria, which sounds like military collusion to me. How has Trump been beneficial to Israel? Israel loves Trump, and Trump loves Israel. If his policies weren't benefiting Israel, do you think there would be press like this? How about his controversial measure of moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, which really seems to be the puppet move these days? I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there is a few world leaders all talking about this decision at the same time. But if you hear a world leader talking about moving their embassy to Jerusalem, chances are they are very influenced by Benjamin Netanyahu. Another move initiated by Trump was to cut U.S. aid to Palestinians, a move looked at favorably by the government in Israel. And how about the controversial continuation of billions in military aid? Billions of dollars to Israel. Just imagine how billions of dollars could help the United States instead. Why not take a look at the millions of dollars that hardcore Zionist Sheldon Adelson gave to Trump and the Republicans at campaign time? This makes it hard to imagine that Trump wouldn't collude with Israel's interests. And this seems to coincide with a push for the embassy. But Adelson also has strong influence in Israel. He was able to force several staff members at a news organization to resign simply for running a negative story about him. Trump's presidency has even pushed for Adelson's business in Japan. All this for Adelson. Even though he is an American, it seems as though he is certainly Israel first. Check this out.
The uniform that I wore in the military, unfortunately, was not an Israeli uniform. It was an American uniform. Unfortunately, it was not an Israeli uniform. It was an American uniform. Although my wife was in the IDF, all we care about is being good Zionists, being good citizens of Israel, because even though I'm not Israeli born, Israel is in my heart.
I find it absolutely hilarious how much the media pushes the narrative of Trump being in bed with Putin. If we really wanted to talk about who is in bed with who, it would be Trump's son-in-law that is literally in bed with Netanyahu. Just check out this clip, and you guys can let me know if you've heard Trump talk this positively about any other world leader.
Benjamin Netanyahu, there's nobody like him. He's a winner. He's highly respected. He's highly thought of by all. He's done a great job as prime minister. He's tough, he's smart, he's strong. He is very defensive. A strong prime minister is a strong Israel. And you truly have a great prime minister.
Or how about Netanyahu's feelings for Trump?
Blessed to have many friends who sat in the Oval Office. But Israel has never had a better friend than you. You show this time and again. You show this when you withdrew from the disastrous nuclear deal with Iran. I remember in one of our first meetings you said, "This is a horrible deal. I will leave it." You said it, you did it. You showed it when you restored sanctions against a genocidal regime that seeks to destroy the one and only Jewish state. You said, "I will restore those sanctions." You said it, and you did it. You showed that when you recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital and moved the American embassy there and gave us a tremendous ambassador. You said it, you did it. And you've showed it once again today, Mr. President, with your official proclamation recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights.
Can you imagine the reaction from US media if Putin and Trump had this sort of a relationship? This stuff is really just touching the surface of the issue, but I hope it helps some realize how mainstream media pulls the blinds over our eyes and propagates a false narrative over one that stares us directly in the face. Thank you, everyone. If you like the content and analysis, please like and subscribe. Thanks.